This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
There was definitely some kind of trepidation when I told them I want to go and do this after graduating from university, which they blew a certain amount of money on. It's like, you are a mass comm graduate, you want to go and do fish tanks. Some more, you want to reject a Bloomberg internship. So definitely, societal expectation is important.
For much of human history, manual work and the skilled trades have been the default way in which one earns their keep. And this remains no less true even in a knowledge economy such as Singapore's, where it remains room for this harmony of deep thought and actual physical action. Hello, I'm Tay Hong Yi. You're listening to Headstart On Record, the show that gives a head start to your personal finance and career. Our guest today has been both a public servant as well as an entrepreneur, including in hospitality, nature and outdoor education, as well as landscaping. He is also an urban farmer and one of just a handful of beekeepers in Singapore specializing in sustainable, pesticide-free bee removal. Now, this is, needless to say, a wide range of roles touching on sectors that are not so much learned in school as through practice on the job. And this is really at the heart of what Mr. Clarence Chua, co-founder of the Sundowner, is here to share with us today. Welcome to the show, Clarence.
Hi, thank you.
So, Clarence, maybe just to start with, you have worn many hats, as you would know. Maybe could you share with us, what was your journey, education journey, your first job, and how do you end up getting into entrepreneurship and all these many varied fields that involve really working with your hands?
To start my educational journey, I was a normal kid doing from primary school, secondary school, JC, university. And my first job after university, actually during university, I already started working with my hands. Everyone else was teaching tuition to earn pocket money. Right. I started an aquarium design and build company. So I started building people's aquariums and maintaining their aquariums and setting up for offices and all that. So that was already a part-time gig for me in, I think, first or second year of university. And straight out of university, the very first job I took, actually it was a very important inflection point. I had won a journalism essay competition. I was in a Wee Kim Wee School of Communication Information. And the prize was a paid internship at Bloomberg for a few months. At the very same time, I was at Park Mall. The mall is demolished now. It's no longer there. I went down to the basement. I saw this amazing shop selling beautiful designer aquariums, $8,000 to $10,000 each. And there I was building $800 aquariums, and this guy was doing it for 10 times the price. So I was, wow, this is something I really, really want to do. So I had a choice to make. He offered a job there, and Bloomberg offered an internship. And it was a very, very difficult choice which side to pick. And I ended up doing aquariums for my first job, straight out of school.
And that was when you realized you enjoyed really working with your hands to really build things and be hands-on with things, I imagine? Or was it something that was really even present earlier on in life? Really?
You know, exactly like you said just now, for most of human history, 300,000 years, I think, since Homo sapiens came about, we've been working with our hands.
Yes.
So I think most people have a natural instinct to want to work with their hands. Somehow along the way, especially in Singapore, maybe,
yes,
there has been changed a little bit to a more corporate, face the computer kind
knowledge
of thing.
work,
Knowledge
very
based.
abstract.
Even from young.
Yes.
Even from young, especially now, the kids. So I'm just the guy who fell on the other side of the knife to indulge in something that is more hands-on. Even though my education doing journalism, which was 4 years I spent there in university, to be doing something using with your head and your mouth.
Yes. So then after the gig with the aquarium, there were some other gigs that came along the way before you started your own business. Could you maybe tell us?
I have to tell you, I really went through the school of hard knocks. I graduated in 2008. If you remember the year 2008,
crisis,
it was
yeah.
Asian financial crisis. So worst time to graduate. My first job, 6 months, I was let go. Second job, I was a magazine journalist. I said, okay we try some journalism. Also let go after 6 months. Couldn't make it. And from there, I needed some security. So like you outlined earlier, I had a government job. But even then, it was a pretty hands-on job. I was a park manager. for 2 or 3 years. I was in charge of West Coast Park and East Coast Park. Hands-on, yeah. We went around inspecting trees, inspecting toilets, making sure the public safety was there, no pests, the trees are safe. So it's something I've always enjoyed, working in the outdoors. I'm not just talking about working hands-on, but also working as an entrepreneur. It's just finding pockets of time to do what you needed to do. And to the extent that my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, even joined me for 1 or 2 jobs when it was a bit more tough. So I would say something that you must be willing to do to want to break rules. Don't be scared of breaking the rules.
Yeah. So it was for the entrepreneurship journey, it was aquariums. Then there was landscaping as well, right?
So it was a fish tanks, then fish ponds, then aquariums. Can you see how it leads to each other? So as I grew in the trade, I get to know more people. Some bigger companies started giving me opportunities for doing my first fish pond in a school. So from aquarium to pond, I would say the knowledge gap is like 5 to 10 times. So I had to level up. And most gardens have a pond, right? So from ponds, I started learning how to do landscaping also. So, I mean, eventually I became a landscape boss with workers from Bangladesh and India. But for the first 6 months to maybe even a year, I was doing the actual hands-on work myself out in the gardens of clients, schools, factories, actually cutting leaves and moving soil.
So I can imagine it was a steep learning curve as well.
Steep learning curve, lots of cuts. If you look at my body, there's lots of cuts and stitches everywhere. Bought wrong things, killed more fishes in ponds, killed some trees also. And actually, I would say it's quite humbling because there are some difficult clients who said, hey, you didn't sweep this pile of leaves, come back. And I had gone half an hour already. And to be summoned back like that just to sweep some leaves, you must really put your pride somewhere else.
Then after this with the landscaping, then came the Sundowner. Then that became much more of a nature education, outdoor education, hospitality, as I understand.
Yes. So you can see the thread linking all these different careers or paths. They all are underpinned by my interest in nature. So it's not surprising that from landscaping, I went into outdoor experiences and fun. But the surprising thing was how that happened. I had no idea I would run the Sundowner at all. Okay, but I did want to exit landscaping. So I sold the landscaping business in 2018 or 2019, just before COVID. That was my plan all along. So the thing that I didn't share just now was, after selling the landscape business, we wanted to set up a hotel in Thailand, which we did. Okay, I used the money to buy a hotel in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. And we were going to all move there, the whole family, me, my wife and 2 kids, to north of Thailand. But that didn't happen because of COVID. We had even booked the school tour for my kid to enroll in international school, and we had bought the house. We were a pool villa with 7 bedrooms and run it as a B&B kind of thing. 3 weeks before, flight cancelled.
Oh, goodness.
So that was very tough. And how this led me to do the Sundowner is also pretty interesting. I had to move my foreign workers who were in the dormitories, okay, in Lim Chu Kang, to a safe place, okay. They were going to shut down the dormitories for the next 6 months because of COVID. I pulled them out on the night. The next day, they shut down the dorms. 6 months. If I didn't pull them out, they would have been stuck there. I would have lost probably close to $1 million in terms of work not done. And I plonked them into a shop house in Siglap. And lo and behold, this shop house happened to have a blank rooftop, which we set up as a garden. Back then, I didn't know how to run experiences. But a friend told me, hey, there's this thing called Airbnb experiences. Why don't you try it? And I started running garden tours, which was pretty boring. The interesting thing came when there were bees, honeybees. As I was building it, we were shifting one garden shed from another place to Siglap rooftop. Opened the garden shed, oh my God, there was a huge hive of honeybees. So what am I going to do, right? I called an expert to shift it. He didn't manage to come in time. So I shifted it myself. Got stung everywhere. Yeah. Painful learning journey. The bees also flew away in the end. I didn't manage to have them stay. But it's like, wow, honeybees. I want to learn how to keep honeybees, man. So I learned how to keep honeybees. And with honeybees as a cornerstone, everyone wanted to come for the tour. In fact, it came out in Straits time.
Yes, it did. And just to share to our listeners, I've been to Clarence's nice shop house at Sundowner. It's a wonderful place, and you get to try honeys as well. Do you still have the honey tasting experience?
Yes.
You have different sorts of honeys from different pollinated in different flowers and plants.
Exactly, from different parts of the world, Japan as far away as Mauritania and Africa. So different varietals made from different flower blossoms, like longan honey from Thailand, for example. Yeah, so that's a cool part of the experience.
Then there were a lot of experiences that came after: pizza, cocktail making as well. So a whole range of really hospitality as well. There's all, like you said, underpinned by this love for the outdoors and really being out and about. What do you find the most satisfying of it all?
The most satisfying part, strangely speaking, is, okay, we need to say that first it has to be profitable. I won't do this if it's not profitable. So underpinned by minimum pay and obviously clients who pay well enough, the next thing will be client satisfaction. There are some even parties where I wake up the next day feeling, wow, they really enjoyed themselves. And I had met a friend who I had not met in 30 years, and he came for his schoolmate's kid's birthday party. And they all fed back they had a great time. So I would think it's creating these lasting memories for people when they attend something tangible, and during that party they played with bees, they had a slippery slope, they had different fun things. I even taught the kids how to make cocktails, like you were mentioning. Mocktails are not cocktails.
Mocktails, yes.
Well, they really enjoyed themselves, and a few people gave feedback that they had such a great party in such a unique space. This was in our hotel in Changi Village. That is still very new. That time it was only about a month or two old.
So then you mentioned you touched on this issue of pay. So I imagine that there are quite a lot, especially younger Singaporeans, that might have some aspirations of skill trades. They might feel an inclination towards working with their hands, picking up a skill trade, but they're concerned about things like kind of salary prospects, kind of perceptions. Do you have any words of reassurance or guidance or advice given this very wide and varied journey you have been on this front?
Skilled trades, working with your hands. Okay, that can range from being a doctor even, doing surgery, and another side of the spectrum is being a chef or a hawker, cooking food for people. All that is working with your hands, okay? Yes. So if they want to work with their hands, it's not just doing anything with your hands. You got to choose the trade that really interests you, that you can see sustaining you for at least a few years. And the kind of trade is important also. So it's not just, let's work with our hands, let's go and do something and cook something. For example, I think recently in the news it came out, this hawker couldn't let another person run the stall.
Yes.
And if you want to commit to be a hawker, you got no leave, you got no leave at all. 365 days, you stop working, you
lose the revenue.
Same as being a Grab driver, right? So you got to see what kind of job suits your lifestyle. If you want to take off for 2 months of the year, you can't be someone cooking in a hawker center, right? Because then you have no leave, basically. You got to also design something that is suitable to your lifestyle, something that interests you and suitable to your lifestyle. Maybe you can say doctors have no leave days at all also because they perform such important work. So the kind of lifestyle that you want has to be incorporated with your interests also.
So was that how you did it in terms of all these different segments that you entered into for your entrepreneurship pursuits as well as your jobs before this?
I can say this now that the kind of lifestyle you want is important, but back when I was doing it, I didn't have much thought about this. Had the opportunity, just go and do. But the ad hoc nature of it was, I guess, important, and that's why I'm saying this now. I could reject jobs I didn't want to do because it was on a project basis. Like, for example, building a planted aquarium for someone. I want to do, then I do it. It's not something that would lock me into something that I can't escape, and I think that you would be burnt out pretty soon if you got no leave days for a year or even half a year. Yeah. So maybe I would say even before you start, you would think of something that can give you some kind of break when you want to take a break. Yeah, not just plunk into it and then you discover that you can't take any leave and you've already spent 50,000, 80,000 on something that you can't get out of, and you become a slave to the business rather than you owning the business.
Yes, and then another thing I was very curious about was, what are some common misconceptions about what you do that you have maybe encountered and maybe you would want to dispel them?
For example, one of the jobs I do is honeybee rescue, honeybee relocation, and it's a not-for-profit endeavor that we do. But a lot of people think that not-for-profit means free. So I got a lot of people who say, I have to pay, not free. And then I feel kind of disappointed because where got free things on, You want a high-quality service, you gotta pay for it. And we charge a little bit more than what the pest control people will charge. But I can't charge too much more. If not, people will just opt for the option of getting the pest control company to spray them dead. So I would think with good work comes a certain cost, a certain price. And when people take that for granted, or they ask for a large discount, they are kind of undervaluing the work that we provide. So that also leads me to the next point, where if you want to create something, you got to market it as something that is very sellable, in the way that you must create a unique selling point for yourself. If I were to give advice to someone just trying to do something, and they join an industry where there are 100 other people doing the same thing, and you're just one out of the 100, the price competitiveness is just not there. You're going to become a slave to the business again. So find a special spark, find a USP, unique selling point, that few other people do. There are only 3 other B relocators in Singapore. I'm one of the 3, and the youngest also.
It's interesting that you point out this thing about how people have certain assumptions that because you say not for profit that it's free. But do you think maybe this reflects a certain perception or like the image people have of skilled trades, or maybe even a lack of respect for people in skilled trades among those in Singapore?
It could be, but I don't think so. I think it's just maybe I need to do more work in communicating that this is something that takes a lot of time and specialized skill. But you are right in a way that people may undervalue the work of skilled trades. Even you call a plumber at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to charge you $150. And even my mom complained before, so much money, $150. Then I told her, hey, you don't call this plumber at 11:30. Your toilet is going to start overflowing at 2 a.m. and the whole house will smell something special early in the morning, So these are people who have to come all the way down to you. People who work with your hands usually have to work on site. If you take a Grab down to someone's house, for example, you're going to spend at least $20 and your Grab back is $20. The poor guy charges $150, you minus $40 to $50. He's $100 for his service. So it's not expensive at all. And I think we got to value the people who do this kind of thing. $150 to unclog a toilet bowl with funky stuff inside is definitely not an expensive price. And I think the more of us that realize that this is a very invaluable skill that they are not doing just to earn money for themselves, is to keep society functioning.
Yes.
It's important also.
So I wanted to ask you then, so you actually have so much experience in pivoting to so many different kinds of skilled trades. So what makes a skilled trade more sustainable than others to do? Because I can imagine, especially for Singaporean, some have a bit more upside, a bit more room than others. How do you distinguish it? Because you're very specific about the sectors you went into.
That's a very, very good question. How sustainable is a skilled trade? You must always begin with the end in mind, okay? If you want to rent a stall to perform, like if you're a tattoo artist, for example, you want to rent a stall, okay? You cannot let the stall location dictate where you go. You cannot say, I want to set up in Orchard Road and they're going to charge you $15 per square foot. Even before you start, you're gone, okay? You can't even make rent. You can't even make half your rent, right? Unless you're a world-famous tattoo artist. You need to flip the script on rent, okay? First, you got to look for a place that supports how much you think you can earn. So right now, we are thinking about moving locations and we are shopping by PSF rather than by neighborhood. So you first got to look at the PSF that you think you can make rent on. And then within those available options, choose the best place there. If you don't do that, you're going to be stuck with $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month, struggling from your first week when 2 or 3 people walk in. And before you know it, 6 months' time, you're $60,000 in debt, borrow from your auntie, uncle, and it's just egg on your face.
But this is coming from the entrepreneurship angle. How about for those who... Do you recommend people who are interested in doing skilled trades to start by joining someone else, to be employed by someone else?
Yes, there's another very good point from you. So, skilled trades, I've read a lot of books, self-help books on entrepreneurship and skilled trades. Never spend your own money to experiment yourself. Use OPM, other people's money, other people's time. Okay, so you can learn this skilled trade. Even better, they pay you to learn it. So I myself, when I started doing aquariums, I joined this guy for 6 months. And I learned the skilled trade from him in no time at all. How I continued doing aquariums was that he happened to go overseas to do something and he asked me to take over his clientele to maintain the clientele base. By then, I had learned the skill already to continue doing it. Yeah, so you can't learn it from books. You can't learn it from even going to a class. I think right now that in one of the polytechnics, I just saw a planted aquarium class where they teach you how to do planted aquarium. You can, but it's very limited. You really got to go out there and learn from someone already doing it. Yeah. to be able to learn that skill.
Because there is a client environment, a very specific client project.
Correct. Even something as how near is the nearest toilet. If your pipe is just 1 meter short, you can't pour water into your fish tank. So it happened to me before. I had to pour into a rubbish bin, pour into the fish tank. It took me 2 extra hours. And I finished the job at 11 p.m. at night. So you make or break your job, the practical reality of it. And that can only be done from real world exposure. Sad to say, on the flip side, that can easily happen to business owners as well. So there's many people who join me for a short period of time, and 6 months, even 3 months later, they stole my idea and they set up their own skill trade. There's this guy, won't mention any names, joined me for kayaking for 3 months. He got the idea, he set up his own kayaking gig on his own, outside of my environment after that. So that was very disappointing. But that's how, I guess, myself included, can go around and learn different skills that you had never thought about before, that you didn't study for. These are quite easy to pick up, I would say. Barriers to entry are not very high, but you got to learn from someone who has done it and avoid those mistakes. Yeah.
How do you think we can make people who might be inclined towards this but then they have cold feet or they're worried? What do you think we could help to lower these barriers for people who might be inclined towards these things? Because I guess a worry is that someone who might be inclined towards a skill trade, but
why do you get cold feet? Why do you get cold feet? Doesn't pay enough? Does it not pay enough, or the parents will frown on it? Or?
So basically, they have to first start with finding the root cause of where the kind of worry comes from, and then addressing based on the root cause.
A lot of it is parental unhappiness. I pay so much for your polytechnic university education. You want to go and do this? Definitely, you face that. Definitely. My father's a lawyer. My mother's a teacher. And then, you want to go and fix people's aquariums for a certain part of your day. So there was definitely some kind of trepidation when I told them I want to go and do this after graduating from university, which they blew a certain amount of money on. It's like, you are a mass comm graduate. You want to go and do fish tanks. Some more, you want to reject a Bloomberg internship. So definitely, societal expectation is important. You really gotta bite the bullet and try to convince your loved ones, wife, girlfriend, parents that this is something that you want to try. And a lot of it can be alleviated by showing them the financial side of it, meaning that if they expect you to have a certain career earning a certain amount of money, can doing something else earn you a certain amount of money as well? If there's no financial prospect in it, you could easily lose a girlfriend kind of thing. So you got to try it ad hoc first, I would say. Try it on a project basis, show that there's a certain upside to it. And then you can point to a certain success and show them that actually, if I continue doing this and if I have a plan to acquire more clients, customers, it can actually support the immediate future or even the
fundamentals must be there, basically.
That's right. So don't just plonk into it, say, I have an idea to sell Lego figurines. I want to start building Lego worlds and selling it. Build it, sell it first on the side. You can even have a full-time job and do it by the side. I recently went to Suntec City. The whole expo hall had at least 100 shops, people selling their own craft on the weekends. What's to stop anyone from doing that, right? And have a proof of concept, so to speak, that if I do this once a month, I can earn like that. Twice a month, 3 times a month, 4 times a month. Then you can have some kind of traction to convince your loved ones to say, okay lah, you try lah.
Do you think like some sort of structured apprenticeship or like some sort of support to help companies put in place apprenticeships? Do you think that would be helpful for this kind? A lot of what you do and a lot of what other skilled trades that you've encountered do?
Companies wouldn't really want to make their staff be so independent that they can run off and do their own thing. Larger companies that work with like computer-facing staff can offer internships. You can never go and form your own Bloomberg, for example, or maybe you can, but it's much more difficult. But if someone were to come to me and say they want to take an apprenticeship from me, I'll be very wary also. In fact, I'll make them sign a no competition clause so that they don't, after a few months, run away and start their own thing. So as a business owner, I'll be wary about apprenticeships, but nothing stopping a younger person who wants to pursue that to try to apply for a certain something. But of course, you cannot tell them that you want to exit after 6 months now. You must be clever about it also. Not everything must be said,
Yeah.
And learn the things and have your own ideas after that. It's nothing wrong with that.
That's fair game if you have the foundation.
If you have the foundation and you don't steal clients, I would say. If you do it ethically, if you don't take the clients that you're exposed to, if you honor a certain no competition clause. I've done many no competition clauses after I have exited a business, and you serve it out fairly. 1 year, okay, that's fair enough to say I have enough time for you to go on and do your thing, I do my thing. And you don't burn any bridges, because word can get around quite fast. This guy who just wants to steal your ideas. But if you do it fairly, make friends, don't exit on a bad note, people kind of generally like you, they're not going to curse you after you start your own thing 1 year later.
Yeah. And I think this is what I really enjoyed our conversation, Clarence, because I think this really shows all the nuances and all the difficulties of how working with your hands and entering a skilled trade can both be rewarding, but also a very complex kind of endeavor that requires you to really put some thought into it. And Clarence has outlined some really fantastic practical tips in terms of doing it ad hoc somehow, or learning it from somebody else as an employee first before you start out your entrepreneurship journey. I'm Tay Hong Yi with the Straits Times, and if you have any questions or personal stories to share about your own brush with the skilled trades, do reach out to us. You can find the contact details in the show notes for this podcast, and links to my articles, the Headstart newsletter, or my LinkedIn profile can all be found there too. This podcast episode is edited by Amiru Karim. Thanks for listening.
Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or within our Straits Times app. Thanks for listening. Do note, all analyses, opinions, recommendations, and other information in this podcast are for general information purposes only and are not intended to be relied upon as financial advice. You should not rely on them in making any decision. Please consult a fully qualified financial advisor or professional expert for independent advice and verification. To the fullest extent permitted by law, SPH Media shall not be liable for any loss arising from the use of or reliance on any analyses, opinions, recommendations, and other information in this podcast. SPH Media accepts no responsibility or liability whatsoever that may result or arise from the products, services, or information of any third parties. All opinions expressed by participants in this podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of SPH Media.